So about today and tomorrow. Today we're going to deal mostly with dealing with hope and fear and maintaining calm in the face of uncertainty. Okay. And tomorrow we'll deal with compassion and like self-care and kind of what kind of actions we can take for the future, no matter what happens. Okay. So first, just get your body and mind in the same place, kind of settle in. Then we want to set our bodhicitta motivation, which you know very well by now, but I will repeat a little bit. So bodhicitta means the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So on this path, everything that we do, we aim to do it with the thought and the motivation of benefiting others. So in our practice, this is our motivation. In our daily life, this is our motivation. For anything that we do that is virtuous, this is our motivation. So compassion comes from, bodhicitta begins with compassion. So when we see the suffering of others, we feel that pain in our heart, and then we just want to do something. We want them to be free of suffering. That's compassion. But it's mixed with wisdom, which understands like what is the cause of suffering, right? So the cause of suffering is this really deep fundamental ignorance about the nature of reality, how things work, and that causes us in turn to create negative karma, which then causes us suffering. So with that in mind, we want to attain enlightenment so we can be free ourselves and also help others be free. Then we also just want to take a moment to consider our precious teachers, Jigme Khyentse Rinpoche, Tuku Pema Wangkyo Rinpoche, and Taku Matra Rinpoche, Dalai Lama, and so many other teachers who are here for the sole purpose of helping us and all beings achieve freedom. So I just think of them with a lot of gratitude for doing that and for, coming back to benefit us and respect for their realization. All right. So before we start, I want to recite the first 3 verses there in the chat. Okay. Since I and other beings both, in wanting happiness, are equal and alike, what difference is there to distinguish us that I should strive to have my bliss alone? Since I and other beings both, in fleeing suffering, are equal and alike, what difference is there to distinguish us that I should save myself and not the others? Therefore, just as I defend myself from even slight disparagement, in just the same way with regard to others, I should likewise have a mind protective and compassionate. The next verse too. That's why I had the real closing, because they don't allow you to edit these things. To free myself from harm and others from their sufferings, let me give myself to others, loving them as I now love myself. Okay, so I want to begin with a few words from the Dalai Lama and Chokyi Nyima Rinpoche, and then we'll do some meditation. So the Dalai Lama says, be mindful, cultivate peace of mind. As human beings, we have a remarkable intelligence that allows us to analyze and plan for the future. Since destructive emotions like anger and attachment cloud our ability to use our intelligence clearly, we need to tackle them, unquote. So we can't think clearly when we are full of anger and attachment, right? So we can see this for ourselves, can't we? Think about how agitated and unstable the mind is when we're in the midst of rage, right? I mean, we even say blind with rage, yeah? And then think about how stable and open and clear the mind is when we're relaxed and imbued with compassion. So you have that experience, right? I'm going to unmute you because I don't think it's necessary, just for one person. Oops. Can you unmute yourself? Because they're not letting me do it. Okay, great. Thank you. So So when we look at that, sometimes people feel like, oh, compassion is a weak state. You know, we feel like to be compassionate means to let people bulldoze you, run all over you, to be at the mercy of other people. But it's not about that. We can still be strong. We can still set boundaries with people. We can, and so forth, from a compassionate mind. The difference between a compassionate mind, a relaxed mind, and an angry and attached mind is just what the Dalai Lama says, right? So the best way that we can help ourselves and others is to work with our own mind in this way, yeah. To practice recognizing what is happening in our own mind and then be able to make a choice about it rather than just being at the mercy, right, of all our thoughts and emotions. So the teachings say that, like, by maintaining our own mental balance is the best way for us to support others, right? And there's often this example given of, like, let's say you're in a boat on the ocean and everything's really choppy and, it's just swaying back and forth, these big waves coming over. Like, who would you rather help you, or who would you go to for help? The person who is panicking and freaking out and just like totally emotional, or the person who is calm and serene, right? We would definitely be more attracted to and look to that person as a kind of refuge, right? So when sometimes people think like, oh, meditating is just, it's nothing, it's just, it's only helpful for you, it's self-centered, it's navel gazing, this kind of thing, right? But when we do meditation, when we think of it in this way, we can see that it is one of the most important things we can do to benefit others, right? So we're not in the soup with them, we're not in the rapids with them, we're on the shore. We can say, hey, up there's a rock, be careful, or call 911 or whatever we need to do, to help them. So that's how, like, meditation is so helpful. And so Chokyi Nyima Rinpoche says, we may shout, let there be peace, but this won't really bring peace. Peace will appear in the world around us only when each individual learns to tame the disturbances arising within his or her own mind, right? The other thing that I wanted to say before let's do the meditation first. All right, so we're just going to do a few minutes, like maybe 10 minutes or so of mindfulness or breathing practice. I'm going to explain it, even though you don't really need an explanation, just because we're recording this, so maybe other people do need it, We're going to do mindfulness or breathing meditation now. And mindfulness or breathing meditation is about keeping the mind in the present moment. It's about practicing awareness and being able to focus, okay? Normally our mind is running all over the place, right? I still experience that 23 hours a day, maybe, so running into the future, running up to the past, having some kind of anxiety, having some kind of, just being everywhere but here, okay? So this practice is meant to sort of help us to realize when the mind has gotten totally distracted and bring it back to the present. And then to say, oh, I got distracted, bring it back to the present. So that's like one of the main things, purposes of this meditation. But some other kind of, some other aspects, let's just put it that way, is that we start to learn to understand, like, what is actually happening in our mind. Because normally we're not really looking there, we're looking at the outside world, right? This person is making me angry. This person is making me happy. That thing makes me sad, And we don't see what's happening in our mind, right? And we may think like, oh, I'm a really calm person. I always am wary of people who say something like that. I'm a really calm person. Because eventually, no, So usually. So through doing this kind of practice, we can see like, oh, I have a lot of anxiety, or I have a lot of anger that, I didn't realize, this kind of thing, right? And we can see, not just those maybe deeper things, but even really simple things like being aware or not aware of someone who needs help. Like in one of the teachings, I can't remember where, they talked about being casually unkind. Casually unkind. So what that means is like, oftentimes when we hurt other people, it's not because we have an active desire to hurt them. It's that we're not paying attention. We're not thinking about the words that are coming out of our mouths and how they might affect that person. I remember, for example, a relative of mine lost her husband. He passed away at like 33, and they had only been married a few years, And so I was, at one point in the visitation, I was sitting down next to her, and there were all these people coming up to her. And honestly, 90% of them, either what they said was totally unhelpful or actively painful to her. I remember in particular this one elderly couple who came by, and they knew the situation, otherwise they wouldn't be there, And they said to her, oh, we've been married for 55 years, right? And I was just sitting there like mouth open, like, really? Did you just say that to her? Do you realize she just lost her husband? So I know that those people, every person who talked to her had a good heart, really wanted to do something kind, was nervous, didn't know what to say. I'm the same when I go, I never know what to say, And so this kind of thing comes out. But those words come out from not paying attention. They didn't want to hurt her, right? They just, blah, 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 that's what came to mind, right? And that's what they said. So when we do mindfulness or breathing practice, we start to be more aware of that, and we start to kind of slow down a little bit and not just rush into saying whatever we want to say or the first thing that comes to mind, right? We can think about the whole situation. So that's one of the other benefits, and a lot of other things. I'm not going to go into the whole theory of meditation, but anyway, so how we do this meditation: if you're sitting in a chair, you just want your feet flat on the floor. If you're sitting on the floor, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. And all the other instructions are the same. So your hands, you want your hands either palms down on your knees, or resting one on top of the other like that in your lap, or with your fingers on top of each other and your thumbs touching like that. So one of those three postures. Then you want your back straight, okay? Not like you're in an army, right? But just straight, but relaxed. Your arms are also relaxed, so not holding them in, not holding them out. And something I like to do is just roll my shoulders back, because that kind of opens up the chest, makes it easier to breathe. The chin should be tucked in just a little bit, because the back of the neck is also straight. Mouth is closed but relaxed, breathing through the nose. Ideally, our eyes should be open, looking. So if we look straight ahead and then we just kind of lower our eyes halfway, that's a good relaxed lowered gaze. So that's what we're doing with our body. With our mind, we are being aware of the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. Okay, so just take a moment to notice that before I continue. Okay, so that's where we're trying to maintain our awareness, and we want to maintain that awareness consistently. So the entire breath in, the entire breath out, there's a pause, the entire breath in, the entire breath out. At some point in that process, in the next 10 minutes or whatever, we're going to get distracted. As soon as we realize that, just bring the mind back. That's it. Don't criticize ourselves, don't criticize the thoughts, nothing. Just, oh, I got lost. Come back to the breath. So I'm going to ring the gong to start and also to finish. Okay. So now, if you like, you can begin to count the breaths, counting either every in-breath or every out-breath, up to a total of 10 breaths. Counting helps us to realize more quickly if we've gotten distracted, because we'll realize, oh, I lost count. Same thing, if we lose count because we got distracted, it really is no big deal. And the moment we realize that is a great thing. It's a victory, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. To know when we're distracted, to know when we're not distracted, and to bring the mind back to the present moment. Okay? So we can begin counting now. Okay. So now I'm going to unmute you again. Oh, can you unmute yourself, please? Thanks. Okay, so now we have some more words from the Dalai Lama. He says, fear and anxiety easily give way to anger and violence. Excuse me. The opposite of fear is trust, which, related to warm-heartedness, boosts our self-confidence. Compassion also reduces fear, reflecting as it does a concern for others' well-being. When we're under the sway of anger or attachment, as we said earlier, we're limited in our ability to take a full and realistic view of the situation. When the mind is compassionate, it is calm, and we're able to use our sense of reason practically, realistically, and with determination. So fear, I imagine that probably, well, let's say a lot of people, probably millions of people at this point, are feeling a lot of fear around this election, right? Especially the more disenfranchised people in our society, right? People of color, gay people, people with a lot of illnesses who are worried about healthcare, people without jobs, all that kind of stuff. Those people in particular are maybe quite fearful. So we can't do much about that, right? About making them not fear. But as we said before, if we want to help them, we're not going to help them through aggression and fear, right? We have to work with our own mind in order to benefit anybody else. It doesn't mean like, oh, we have to wait till we attain enlightenment to help anybody. No, of course we want to vote, we want to, petition, march, donate, whatever we can do to help others, visit an elderly neighbor, whatever. Yes, definitely we should do as much as we can. But we should do those things in tandem with working with our own mind. Otherwise, we're just adding, if we feel so much fear and so much anger and hatred and all of that, even if we have a good motivation, like we want to help others, we want to do this and that, we're all we're going to do really is add more chaos to the world, to an already chaotic situation. We're going to add more hatred to a world that is now swimming in hatred and things like that. So really, it doesn't help anyone, right? So in Buddhism, we often talk about this combination of hope and fear. So they sound like two separate things, but really they're just two sides of the same coin, right? So anytime we hope for a certain outcome and work hard to make it happen, like the election, then we also introduce fear, right? So fear of failing, fear of loss, okay? So fear has nothing to do with the present moment. And this is something really important to remember also, right? It has to do with the future. Fear and anxiety are essentially fantasies about the future, right? If this happens, then this will happen, and this will happen, and that'll happen, and right? But the future doesn't exist. It hasn't happened yet. So we don't actually know. We have no proof that things are going to be the way that we fear, okay? It hasn't happened yet. Same thing with the past. We may ruminate a lot about the past. We may even, use the past to kind of feed our fear about the future. But also the past doesn't exist. Past is gone. Past is only, passing. It's just memories at this point. And our memories are really unstable and unreliable. So even that is not really something we can rely on. So the only thing we have is right now, what's right here. The present moment is the only thing really, and even that present moment, by the time I say present moment, it has already passed, right? So we need to kind of try to balance ourselves in and practice remaining in the present moment, especially in the face of fear. And that goes for, over like global anxiety that we may have too. Because I know like a lot of us have different mental illnesses, different mental issues, myself, it's depression. So when we just keep, that's why like this practice mindfulness of breathing is so helpful, because through that practice we train, right? Bring our mind back, bring the mind back, bring the mind back. Yeah. When we find ourselves spinning out into the future, like right now for some people that might be, if Trump wins, we're really lost and well, democracy is gone, and on and on and on, and we start to panic. Maybe that will happen. Maybe that will happen. We don't know, right? But even if that does happen, us being panic-stricken and, full of anger and fear, that's not going to help the situation, right? The only thing we can do in that situation, or not the only thing, but the best thing we can do in that situation is to maintain a steady mind and a compassionate heart. Through those things, then we'll be able to see more clearly, okay, what can we do to make a better situation? We can't control what's going to happen. We can't control other people. We can't control the weather. We can't control really anything but our own mind. Okay. So knowing that, it doesn't mean that we become fatalistic and just don't try to do anything, right? Knowing that means that as we're trying to help others or make a change in the world or however we see it, at the same time we understand that that like this, how can I say, at the same time we don't want to be too attached to the result, right? So I need, where's that quote? I had some quote about that. I know I must have left it for tomorrow. Okay. So we even in helping others, we need to like be in the present moment. And we want to focus on doing what we see as the wise and compassionate thing in this moment, without being too attached to expectations that we have of the work that we're doing, right? And relying on the result to make us happy. I will only do this thing if I can be certain that it's going to result in XYZ. Like, that's not really, it's what we normally do, right? But it's not really helpful. Like, one of the examples I like a lot regarding that, a little bit related to that, is when we, when in the Buddhist teachings, when they talk about generosity, they talk about like the perfection of generosity, which is to give without any expectation of receiving anything in return. Okay, just to give, and to give free of concepts of giver, what is given, and the receiver. So that's a whole nother area that I won't go into right now. But we always expect something when we give. Even if we say, I don't expect anything, then that person doesn't even say thank you, and then we say to our friend, oh, I did this and this. They didn't even say thank you, Well, expecting a thank you is still expecting something, and we want to like get something in return. So that's the kind of thing sort of we have to, watch out for, even if we're working towards something great, something better, a better world. The other thing I wanted to say before we go on to the Tonglen, a couple more things, is that crisis, a big situation like what we have now and all the big emotions that are involved in that, is the perfect situation for practice. It is so helpful for practice because it's right there in your face, you can't run away from it. Like, we could all right now go and live in a cave in the mountains somewhere, we're going to bring it with us, right? Even sitting in our cave in the mountains, we're still going to be thinking, oh, who's going to win the election? I don't know. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be great, or yay, or boo, whatever. We're still going to be involved in that, right? So it's unavoidable, yeah? And we want to run away. We want to go to that cave. We want to go to the beach. We want to, hide under the covers, whatever, but we can't, right? So because we have no choice, it's just so good for practice, It's big, it's really uncomfortable, We want to do something with it because it's so uncomfortable, but we know that our like habitual way of dealing with things isn't going to work. So then we look to the Dharma, and we look like, oh, what do the teachings have to say about this? How can I relate to this in a way that is more skillful and more wise than the way I'm used to relating? You see what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah. So we're like forced to look at the Buddhist teachings. And the Buddhist teachings say what? Just what I was saying this whole time. We have to work with our own mind. We can't try to, we can try, but we're not going to be successful if we try to arrange everything outside of ourselves so we can be happy and peaceful. Well, I could be happy and peaceful if we had this kind of government. I could be happy and peaceful if I had a different partner. I could be happy and peaceful if I had more money. All that stuff is outside of ourselves. And all of that is impermanent. You know, all of that is unstable. And so just by virtue of it being impermanent, just that alone, not to mention the many other factors, just by virtue of it being impermanent means it cannot give us lasting happiness, right? So we're constantly looking in the wrong place for these things. We need to look in ourselves. We need to work with our mind. And then once we really cultivate this very strongly, this mind of compassion, kindness, calm, wisdom, all of that, then whatever happens outside, we can handle it, right? Because we're not relying on that for our happiness. You see what I mean? So the other thing I want to say before we do a little bit of Tonglen is this quote I found from Margaret Thatcher, of all people. She said, "There's no such thing as society. There are individual men and women, and there are families. And no government can do anything except through people. And people must look to themselves first." Unquote. Okay? That's probably the wisest thing she ever said in her life, right? So we think about like America, politics, Congress, as these kind of monolithic things that have nothing to do with individual people, that have nothing to do with us, right? America is made up of millions of people, individual people. So if people as individuals start to work on themselves, if we start to work on ourselves, then society, America, Congress, all of that stuff starts to be more peaceful, more loving, more kind, more responsible, more wise, right? So that's another way where things like meditation and reflection are helping the outer world. If we become someone, if we, let's say, put it a better way, if we access our innate wisdom and compassion and we allow that to flourish, then we are one more person in this world who has those qualities, who is compassionate, kind, patient, etc., right? So of course it's helping the world because we're all individuals in this world, and because of all the reasons I said before, we're interacting with others, interacting with the world, interacting with so-called America, politics, companies, corporations, we come from much more place of clarity. All right. So now we're just gonna, I already asked you if you could stay a little bit. Just because we started late and waiting for people, I want to take just a couple more, like 5 more minutes maybe. Okay, so now we're gonna do Tonglen. And I was going to do 2 times that, but I was going to do Tonglen and neutral person, but I'm just going to do, love and neutral person, but we're just going to do someone that we love. So again, I'm just going to mute you here. Okay, so this practice, the posture is the same. I'm not going to explain everything about the practice because it'll take too long, so we'll just do it together and I will guide you through it, okay? So again, just take a moment, gotta drink some water, and settle in. Take a minute to just focus on your breath. Excuse me. Okay. So in this practice, if you want to close your eyes, that's fine. Okay, it's a different kind of practice. So I'm going to ring the gong. Just listen to the sound as long as you can hear it, and then just let your mind rest. You don't have to focus. At the same time, you're not distracted. Just let the mind settle. Now imagine in your heart center, so the middle of your chest, a very bright white light like a shining star, with light going in all directions. Then consider that you're breathing in gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy, through all the pores of your body. And all of that smoke, down to the very last particle, dissolves into that white light in your heart center. Now breathe out white light through all the pores of your body. Cool, clean, clear, very bright. Every pore of your body emanating a ray of white light in all directions. Now imagine in front of you someone that you love a great deal. So this person can be alive or they can have already passed. But go into your heart and feel the love you have for this person. How much you appreciate them being in your life. How precious they are to you. How they care about you. How you care about them. And do feel the love they have for you also. And then consider the way or ways in which this person is suffering or did suffer. Physically, they might be sick or have some other physical problems. Mentally and emotionally, they might suffer from addiction or anxiety, depression, loneliness, or something else. They might be worried about money or their health, might be having troubles at home or at work or at school. So don't just think about those things, but try to really feel them in your heart. What does it feel like? Put yourself in that other person's shoes. What does it feel like to have to go through that? Now consider that all of their sufferings, whatever they are, take the form of gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. It leaves them and it comes to you. Without any hesitation, you breathe that in through all the pores of your body. Every particle of that smoke dissolving into the white light in your heart center. Till there's not a single particle left. There's only light. Now you will offer this person your own happiness. Consider you're giving it away. Your own good fortune, anything that person needs, along with the wish that they attain full and complete enlightenment in this very lifetime. All of that takes the form of white light, cool, clean, clear, very bright. Breathe out that white light through all the pores of your body. And when the rays of light touch them, their suffering just completely lifts off of them and disappears. And you see their face and body relax with great relief. They feel happy, peaceful, and you feel joyful for being able to do this for them. Now we're going to send that out towards all beings, including all those who disagree with us politically, including politicians that we dislike, including all those we love, all those we do agree with politically. That would be maybe the first ring around us, in front, to the right, behind, and to the left. And then behind them, all sentient beings without exception. So we visualize that as far as the eye can see, as many beings as we can conceive of, all the way to the horizon, in front, to the right, behind, and to the left. So the first thing we want to do is to consider our sameness to these beings, in the sense that each and every one of us wants to be happy. Each and every one of us wants to be free from suffering. And yet, each and every one of us suffers. Paradoxically, the reason we suffer is because we continue to create the causes of our suffering in an effort to escape that very suffering. So we think about how much we are the same in those deep aspects. Then we think about our interconnectedness, especially now. We all are so dependent on one another, as the Dalai Lama talks about, in this global economy, in this, how do you think, like, that's the way COVID spread so quickly, was because we can get everywhere in the world now. So we're connected in so many ways. And then there are so many that we rely on just for our day-to-day life. For food, we rely on others. Clothing, we rely on others. Whoever made our car or the bus or the train, whoever, maintains our electricity and heat and so forth and so on, right? It's endless. So we develop a sense of gratitude to all those people. And then we do the same thing. We think about all of them, whatever ways they might be suffering, physically, mentally, emotionally. We generate a sense of compassion for them and wishing that they be free of that suffering. And then we consider that all their suffering, whatever it is, takes the form of gray smoke, hot, dark, and heavy. It leaves them and it comes to us. And without any hesitation, we breathe that in through all the pores of our body. And all of that smoke dissolves into the white light in our heart center, down to the very last particle until there's only light. And then we offer all of these beings our own happiness, our own good fortune, anything at all that they may need, and the wish that they attain full and complete enlightenment, freedom from suffering in this very life. All of that takes the form of white light, cool, clean, clear, very bright, very powerful and strong light. And we breathe that out through all the pores of our body, right to the horizon in every direction. And we consider that when these rays of light touch all of these beings, each individually, their suffering just lifts off of them and disappears in the sky like fog in the morning sky. They look so relieved to have this heavy weight of suffering lifted off of them. Their face is so much more relaxed. Their body relaxes. They feel so peaceful and joyful and at ease. And you feel joyful for being able to do this for them. Now we let go of the visualization altogether, gently bringing the mind back to the breath, sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose, being in the present moment, here and now. So now if you look at the chat, then we can read from where it says the real closing, starting with for all those ailing in the world. So all of these verses that we've said so far are from a book called The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. For all those ailing in the world, until their every sickness has been healed, may I myself become for them the doctor, nurse, the medicine itself. Raining down a flood of food and drink, may I dispel the ills of thirst and famine, and in the eons marked by scarcity and want, may I myself appear as drink and sustenance. For sentient beings poor and destitute, may I become a treasure ever plentiful, and lie before them closely in their reach, a varied source of all that they might need. My body thus, and all my goods besides, and all my merits gained and to be gained, I give them all and do not count the cost, to bring about the benefit of beings. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May every sickness that afflicts the living be wholly and forever absent from the world. May those who go in dread have no more fear. May captives be unchained and now set free. And may the weak receive their strength. May living beings help each other in kindness. May children and the aged and all those without protection, wandering in the fearful, pathless wastes, who fall asleep unconscious of their peril, have pure celestial beings as their guardians. Now this last one, we're going to say once in English and once in Tibetan. The Tibetan is first, the English is second. But we start with the English and then the Tibetan. All right. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. Sonam di tamche sikpani tone nye pedranam pamche shing kegana chi balon trupayi si pe sole droa sho. Okay, so thank you for joining me this morning, and please be calm and mindful, or we'll try our best. I will also try, and please take care of yourself and think of others, okay?